Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I'm super excited to have you guys here with me today, and my awesome guest. You guys have no clue how excited I am about this one. Alan Stevens is a part of the podcast. So, Alan, do us all a favor. Tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into this.
Okay, well, as you said, my name's Alan Stevens. I live here in just north of Sydney in New South Wales, Australia. My business, I'm a profiling and communication specialist, which means I teach people how to read other people, first of all, to know themselves better, then to be able to read other people and know how to build stronger relationships in all areas of their life, whether that be in business or whether that be raising children, finding the right partner or whatever it might be in life. And what got me into it was a good 50-something years of being very bad at reading people and building relationships. So I went through 2 divorces, a lot of broken relationships, and even business partners who emptied the bank out. And then one day realised I needed better skills and set me on a path of learning how to read people at a much deeper level than I'd been able to learn before.
Which I am so super excited about. This topic is like one of my favorites because I love that you took the learning aspect piece of it and where you were ultimately not the greatest at, right? And using it to play to a strength of really learning and understanding people and how they operate. And I have to ask, when you were profiling, what is some of the first things that you pay attention to that really kind of unlock a person for you?
Well, it depends on for what reason I'm reading them and when I first see them. If somebody is coming across the car park towards me, I already know when they meet me whether they need to sit, if we're going to talk for some period of time, whether we need to move around or whether they need to sit for a long period of time. Before they get to me, when they're, say, 10, 20 feet away from me, I know how much space they need when I first greet them, so I don't invade their space if there's somebody who needs more space. Or if there's somebody who's more affable, they will come up and stand very close to me. So I'm ready for that. And especially if they're tall, I know that, I'm only 5'6". Well, actually, I'm lying about my height there. I'm a little bit underneath that. As I'm getting older, I think I'm shrinking. But if I've got somebody who's very affable, they'll stand really close to me. And if they're tall, then I'm leaning back like this and looking up in the air at them. And so that becomes uncomfortable for me. So I know how to actually prepare and set up so that I can get that space that I need to feel a little bit more comfortable. So I've got more, looking at a more horizontal level than, stretching up at a high angle. And so it just comes down to what's the situation and also what's the purpose behind it.
And now, what do you feel like is a really good reason why people should learn to at least profile to some extent?
Well, just to have better relationships to start with. we go out, and first of all, as we're growing up, we're looking at the hobbies and sports, and even what subjects we're going to do at school. If we know all our personality, we know where our strengths are, and we can find the hobbies and sports that will suit us at a very young age, so we can go into those fields and enjoy that. Before we leave school, we can pick the subjects that that match our career, first of all, that matches our personality, and from there pick the subjects we're going to do to get through school. So we can then enjoy school as well. If we've got that, that's a starting point. Then when we go out and we find our first partner, well, the first thing is to know our own personality, so we know what we're looking for in a partner. And then looking at the other person, we can work out who's going to match that requirement, what we're actually looking for. And once we've got that in place, then we know, okay, how we then keep that relationship. Because, you're a little bit more around the affable. It's how things feel inside. That when you're working on something, just leave you alone if you're really focused on it, because you just want to fix it. But there's others who need to express it outwardly. Now, that person who expresses it outwardly is usually exciting and everything else. And for someone like you and I, it's nice to be around them. It's exciting. But over a period of time, we get used to the upside of their traits. And then we start noticing the downside, because those people also express their stress verbally and, really more dramatic around the way in which they do it. So all of a sudden we go, oh, that's too much energy. So if we understand that, well, I know that, well, if I ask them a question, I know how to phrase that question so I get the right response from them, that they feel more comfortable, and we're able to talk to each other in the way that each need to be spoken to, so that we can bring that sparkle back into the marriage as well.
I love
and in
that.
the workplace, how to pick the right people to work with.
Definitely on that one, 100%. And I love it. I have to go back to this, but you said making sure that you understand how to profile yourself and understand yourself. And I do think that this is something that a lot of people skip, because we think we understand on a surface level of who we are and who we are as a person, when in reality, I think we almost avoid certain pieces because we don't want to accept them. However, it still comes out when we're dealing with other people, and it does affect other people based on their perspective and how they take things in, where that conversation is going to go, where that relationship is going to go, and can make things extremely awkward or, the complete opposite and really great.
Yeah, because if you look at it, everybody looks at the world with them as the center of the universe. So each person sees them as being the normal, and everybody else being either to the left or to the right on the scale. The thing is that we're looking at people on a world scale. If I want to communicate with you more effectively, I've got to tune my transmitter into your receiver, and so that you can understand. Because if you're not interested in what I'm talking about, because you don't know what it is I'm going to be talking about, we're wasting our time. So I've got to be able to connect and talk to you in the way that you can then say, hey, this is interesting. Yeah, I want to know more, and we can have a discussion. So I need to know where I am on the world scale before I know how to then modify the way I like to be spoken to match the way the other person likes to be spoken to. If I look at them and say, right, this is where they are on the world scale, and I'm right down this end, I have to change more to talk to them in the way that they need to be spoken to. If I'd been up here, it would be less. It's a smaller change. So I need to know where I am, first of all, so I can then effectively change and match the way that they need to be spoken to and treated, depending on where they are on the world scale. So it's also always know yourself, then know the other person, and then speak to them the way that they need to be spoken to. So it's not a case of, yes, when it comes to respect, treat everybody the way that you would have them treat you. But then when it comes to communication, it's always treat other people as they would have you treat them, so that you're actually then matching them in that way. And that's what the profiling is all about.
Yeah. And you're so true too. And it's funny because I did this a lot when I first got into the medical field. And then when I moved into real estate and some of the other things, I did what I called mirror and matching. So I was always very aware of how someone stood, how they looked at you. You could tell in their body language if they were uncomfortable, if you were hitting a subject they didn't really want to talk about, and being able to really pay attention to that, even down to certain questions that you ask and how they answer them, right? If you ask a simple question and they give a very direct answer, then if you go on and on and on and on and on, right, in your way of speaking to them, you're going to completely lose them. But if you can learn how to be a little bit more direct, you're going to match them where they are, which allows you guys to be on a very similar level. And both people are going to take into account a little bit better, right? Versus if I'm coming from the complete other spectrum, like you were just saying.
Yeah. When you look at it that way, when you look at matching and mirroring people, that's something that we are doing to them. So if it's like if you're a speaker on stage and you wanted people to say yes to a question, normally we put our right hand up. Most people, because most people are right-handed, you ask them a question, and if you say, put your hand up if you agree with this, they'll put their right hand up. So if you're standing on stage, you put your left hand up because you're mirroring them. And mirroring is a bit stronger than matching. Because if you put your right hand up, they put their right hand up, there's a connection, but not as much of a connection. But you're doing it to them. Once you know how to read somebody and you start just naturally talking to them in the way they need to be spoken to, they actually start following your movements. So it becomes even stronger because you look at a couple of people speaking to each other, you can see that they're really connected because they might both be sitting back in a relaxed position, or one comes forward and starts talking, the other one comes forward. You know they're in rapport. And the thing is that if you're following the other person, you're always looking at trying to make sure you get the matching and mirroring right, then they will actually pick that up, that you're doing it to them. Whereas when you're in that conversation, you change the way that you like to be spoken to match the way that they do. All of a sudden, they start mirroring you and matching you. And so that becomes a stronger connection. And when they do that, you know you'll have rapport. When you're doing it the other way, doing it to them, you don't know whether you've got rapport. And that's why you really need to be able to watch their body language, especially their expressions on their face, as to whether they've picked up that you've been trying to do this deliberately, or were you just naturally doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And that makes so much sense. And I guess I didn't realize that I do it naturally when I'm paying attention to people, just because it's something I've always paid attention to. And I'm a little bit more, I feel like I'm a little bit more hypersensitive to those things now versus when I used to be. And I think that some of that has to do with the abuse that I went through, because I had to be, when I was in survival mode, hyper aware of his feeling, what was going on, what could possibly happen next. So inevitably, something that I went through that was kind of a trauma, I was able to actually kind of take and use now as a skill, because I'm aware of it, but I also know what I'm doing. It's not a survival mechanism to protect myself. I actually enjoy doing it because it allows for easier conversation.
Yeah, so you get to a much deeper level on things. People will open up more and start talking to you. Being able to read somebody, even in a sales situation, if I can pick up there's something emotionally going on, I know to stop wasting my time trying to get the sale, but now I can help them address that particular situation, which now they realize that, hey, I was here looking at a true salesperson's job is not to sell a product, it's to problem solve so the person then wants to buy from them. And so in that conversation, when you stop and go, hang on, there's something else going on here. Look, instead of me going through the rest of this presentation, let's have a talk about that first of all. And they now know that you're not just trying to get a sale, because a salesperson who just wants a sale will try and rush them through it. They'll force through it. Yeah. And so with this now, you're taking it away and saying, no, let's have a bit of a chat and find out what's going on here. And you go, okay, well, I may not be able to help you with that, but I've got somebody who can help you with that. Next thing you know, the person's coming back to you and going, well, can you tell us the rest of what you were talking about? And so as I always say to people, I don't sell anything at all, but a lot of people buy from me, because it's always understanding, connecting with that person, because the more genuine you are about building a relationship, the less, or it's easier to do work with them. You don't have to work so hard anymore, because they just have that natural rapport. And the more that you continue that natural rapport, the stronger the relationship comes. Not only are they going to do business with you, but they're going to be telling everybody else why they should be doing business with you as well. They become your advocates when they talk about having raving fans. This is how you build it, by building that relationship. Because in business, I always say to people, which is the most important? Is it your product or service, or is it your relationship that you build? And I get a lot of people going backwards and forwards. Some people will say the relationship, some will say the product and service. And that's when I say, well, that was a trick question. I asked you which was a priority, or which was the most valuable, I should say, most important. And I said, what I should have asked you was, which is the priority? Because a relationship is always a priority, because if you can't build a relationship, you're never going to get to show people how good your product or service is. Because people, when they say to me, Alan, what do you bring to the table when they're talking about their products and services? I just say, look, I just bring the damn table. And they go, what? I go, well, you put your products and services on a table. You have to build a relationship before you can show your products and services. So the table is a relationship. So that's all I do is I just bring the table.
I love that. I may have to use that one later because I feel that from my standpoint and the way that I build my business and the way that I communicate with other people, it's the same. It's very much the same way. And I strongly suggest that to other people that have a really strong passion with what they are wanting to sell, because ultimately, especially for me, I'm not necessarily selling a service. I'm selling myself, my connection and my relationship, and my ability to listen to what you are saying and pay attention to that more than what I'm trying to get across to you is why people want to work with me. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs completely miss that when it comes to building their business, because they are so stuck in the scarcity mindset of, I have to have the sale, I have to make the money. And there's this attachment to that they completely bypass everything else that's important.
That's it. So we sell ourselves and our clients buy our products. It's always, we've got to sell ourselves first, and that is always going to be the relationship. And as you're right, so many people forget that. They think, oh no, I've got to get the sale. Now, if you're able to read the other person, you know exactly how much information to give them so that you can get to that sale. And so by able to look at somebody, I can look at the people who just want the overview, because some of those people who are desperate to get the sale will actually talk they'll actually get into the sale, and then they'll talk themselves out of the sale because they don't know when to stop talking. You know, I know that you're analytical. And by the way, I hope you don't mind. I just can't help this. I look at somebody and I start pulling traits. Go ahead. Away. But I know that you're analytical. You need all the information before you make a decision. There are those people who just want the overview. Now, those people who just want the overview, if they're on a mountain peak and you said, right, we want you to go to that mountain peak over there, they just want to know, where's the bridge? In your case, you want to know where the bridge is, but you want to know whether it's strong enough, how it's built and everything else, whether it's sturdy enough. Or if there isn't a bridge there, you'll go down the mountain peak, picking up information across the valley, start to pick up more information and decide whether you want to go up the other side or not anyway. So it'll take you longer to get to a sale. So I know I need to give you more information. But at the same time, being analytical as well, with giving too much information to somebody who just wants the overview, they'll be trying to finish your sentences. And there's a good chance here that if people want to know where they are on the scale compared to somebody else they've been talking to on the scale, just ask yourself, when you've been explaining something to them, were they finishing your sentences off? Did they seem everything was going fine, then all of a sudden they switched off? If that's the case, then that person was less analytical than you. They just wanted the overview. If you find that somebody then is dragging you back when you're trying to give information, to get more information, they keep coming back and say, I want to know more about that, then you're more the bigger picture, the bigger view at that time than the other person was more analytical. This is why you need to know where you are on the scale and where the other person is. So you know how to switch that at any given moment. Yeah. And you can do that. You know, I do it on stage with, hundreds of people in the audience, and I just pick people out and start talking to them and then talk to their partners and things, the people with them. And so I guarantee that the person does this. The answers always come back yes. I get people asking me about 100% right, all the time. And I went, no, nothing's 100%, but I'm yet to be proven wrong.
Oh, I think for me too, it's extremely fascinating, because when I think about it, even when we talked the first time and you were kind of reading and profiling me, it's such a second nature to you in the way that you do it. I have met with people that I can tell are like monitoring what they're doing and paying attention. I a lot of times have to slow down because I get so caught up in my I want to speak so fast thing that I will miss certain cues. So I have to slow down so that I'm very present in the moment. And even the first time that you and I talked, like it's such a second nature to you. That's like your body is so habitual to it. You're not even realizing that you're doing it. For those that look at this and go, holy crap, that is so much to even intake for my brain to work, what would you suggest to get them started on just understanding how to, pick yourself apart, but how to understand others?
Yeah, well, first of all, as you mentioned before, that you speak very fast. If people ever have that problem, just tell them to listen faster. Get on with it from that point. But the main thing is that every child, except for a very small percentage of children, had the ability, they were natural profilers. It's part of our survival. We needed, first of all, to be able to recognize people, who's mum, who's dad, who's safe to be around, who's not safe to be around.
Mm-hmm.
But like mum and dad, we needed to be able to pick up their emotions. So the body language, the expressions, the energy that was coming from them. Because if we misread that, next thing you know, whack up the side of the head. You know, you get that sort of thing. So you need to be able to read. So that was survival for us. But as we start to grow up, we're starting to do other things like hobbies and sports and going to school and doing all different activities. In NLP, they say that we take in about 2 million bits of information every second, but we only process 134 bits. There's no way we can process everything because we generalize, delete, and take little bits of information. And when we focus on that particular area, it's like a muscle. If you don't work it, it atrophies. So as we start to feeling comfortable around our family, we know we're pretty safe and everything else. We don't have to be as observant as before. Now we're doing other things. And as we're doing those other things, that skill drops away. Now, as I said, for the best part of 50 years, I was dreadful at reading people. And it was only after my second divorce that I decided I really had to change this and learn more skills. Before that, in the 70s, I was working with body language. I was 23 years old when I was put in charge of a group of men who were all older than me. My second in charge was 38. So I had to use something, and I used body language back then. In the 80s, it was psychometric profiling. We'd ask people questions and they'd fill out questionnaires, and that would then tell you what their personality was. The only accuracy in those is that's their personality right in that moment, because it also brings in their emotions and everything else. So that's why later on I dropped that altogether and needed a better system. And so when in the 90s, it was NLP. And then in the early 2000s, it was then, this is when I found out about the micro expressions and the body language and the facial features, and bringing those two together with the body language and the NLP. But then bringing 4 sciences together created an art form in the way in which it's delivered. So hence the science and art of reading people with human pattern recognition. So with this, and by the way, yes, I'm using the facial features, and people are probably at the moment going, "Oh, this is a bit woo-woo, clairvoyant, that type of thing." No, don't ask me what's going to happen tomorrow. I wouldn't have a clue. So what it comes down to, though, if you lift weights, you're going to build muscles in your body. Say you do bicep curls, you'll build your biceps. If you don't do tricep extensions, you're not going to build your triceps. So, and if I do a bicep curl with my hand up or my palm down, lifting it that way, I get different movements on the muscles and I get different definition. This is how a bodybuilder builds their shape. And so with that, if you work a muscle over and over, it's going to change shape. At the same time, we know everything we feel inside, we express outwardly. This is why body language and the expressions on someone's face, that little twitch on the face, you go, "Oh, they were angry at that point, or they're happy, or they're sad," whatever. If you're doing that and you're pulling expressions while you're concentrating and working, I do this a lot. So I'm going to get these lines up here. Somebody who really does it will also get the ridges across here. And so the ridges and crevices that we create on our face are what we call our nurture traits. These are the ones that we create in response to how we choose to respond to our environment. We start off with the foundation, which have been passed through from our parents in the DNA. So the overall structure of the face. But that will change with the nurture traits as if somebody, we'll say, for instance, somebody, when we're young, corner of the mouth turned up, we're always happy and smiling and everything else. Then you see somebody whose mouth in later life, the corner of the mouth is pulling down. And some people are really down like this, almost following the line down here.
Yeah.
You know that they've been through they've been frowning a lot. These muscles have got stronger and shorter and therefore stretch these, so the shape of the mouth falls down. So this is how some of these traits are then seen. So we can see that through repetitive movement, therefore the mouth is turned down, they must have been frowning a lot. Therefore, there's a good chance they're going to be more pessimistic than somebody whose mouth is turned up. And so you can see how some of this stuff starts to come in. And so if you've got that, then you can see somebody, you know their personality straight away, you know then how to change the way that you like to be spoken to match them. And then you've got the body language and the expressions that give you the feedback. Have you read them right or not? And so, and also whether they're telling the truth. But I don't use that part because I know that Paul Ekman and other specialists like that who did all the research on the micro expressions, the little twitches on the face, they were looking for the emotions, but he teaches it to border control, home, what do you call it? Your home protection groups over there, FBI, CIA,
Homeland
police.
Security.
That's the one. If you do it, they're teaching them to pick up the criminals. So they're looking at it as a lie detection.
Okay.
I use it as a truth seeker, because if I'm talking to you and I realize there's something emotionally going on, or you're not really telling me what's going on, then I know how to actually ask some questions to uncover that. Not to say, you were lying to me, but how can I help you?
Yeah.
So I run a group called the Campfire Project, which is a safe place for both men and women from all over the world to come in and tell their stories. The stories they've never been able to tell anybody before because they felt ashamed or guilty or whatever it might have been. People open up within 5 minutes and telling me their life story. And people said to me, I haven't really, there's not much I can really tell you. 45, 50 minutes later, they're still going. And that's because I've been able to read them, get that instant rapport, help them to open up so they can then share their story. At the end of it, they usually say to me, that's the best therapy I've ever had. And I go, well, if you want to thank the therapist, get off the call, go look in the mirror and say thank you. Because you finally listen to your unconscious mind.
Yeah.
And so here you are consciously trying to work it out in your head, and it doesn't work that way. You've got to come back to the unconscious. You've got to use that gut brain. You've got to use your heart brain as well. Those three brains together. But instead of using this one to rule it, start with the gut, up to your heart, and then use the logic after that, reversing the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you do that, things completely change. So to be able to recognize that what somebody's going through and have those conversations, they always come back and they go, wow, I've had some great revelations. And I go, well, finally, you listen to yourself. And so all I do is facilitate that opportunity. My job in the Campfire Project and other areas like that is not to be a guide or a coach, not to criticize, not to counsel or anything else. I have a responsibility, and we all do. We have a responsibility to create a safe place for other people around us, for them to be able to open up and give themselves permission to share their stories. And when you do that, you have rapport, you have a better relationship. And if we all did that in the community, imagine what the world would be like.
Oh, yeah. It would be so much different, right? And I'd say that from personal experience as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love coaching the way that I do, is because my main focus is on understanding that other person and meeting them exactly where they are at, and then opening them up to the answers that we already have within ourselves, right? We just aren't aware of it because, like you were saying, that conscious brain has us stuck, and it is so hard because we're not taught to listen to any of the other feelings that we have. We are taught to think with our head. I know I did that for the longest time, and I had a really hard time understanding the difference. But the more that I started being in the present moment, which I feel like helps tremendously, the more you're able to actually hear those other parts of the body that have been speaking to you all along. But because you were in such a go mode, the only piece that you heard was that front part, while everything else is shouting in the back, you just can't hear it.
That's it. So this is the problem with our education systems. We are told to listen to respond. We're not taught to listen to understand. And that's when it comes down to it. If somebody, like we see it on Facebook every day, somebody puts a comment up, and next thing you know, everybody's jumping in and taking sides. Yep. They say that on average, from when a person starts to talk about an issue that they've got, the average time before somebody jumps in and try and gives advice to them is 19 seconds. There's not much you can actually share between that. So as soon as you start to talk, because everybody responds from their own point of view, from their own situation in their life. Yeah. And so, and people get aggravated with me because I sit back and I look and they go, why aren't you responding? And I go, well, I haven't got all the information yet, and I will need to understand this before I can then respond to it. Everybody else is trying to respond quickly because there are three levels of empathy. We have cognitive empathy. I can see you're in pain. A torturer needs that. They're not going to get their jollies if they can't see that you're in pain. Then you have the emotional empathy, which is where I feel your pain. Now, we all need to have that to really be able to connect with somebody. But when we get into that and we stay in that, we become part of the problem. We've got compassionate empathy, which comes after that. And that's where I can see your pain, I can feel your pain, but now let's see, do something about fixing it. Now, this is where the misunderstanding between men and women come in, because women, you're brilliant at the emotional empathy. You're listening to the other person, because that's the first thing. You listen to them and you want to know what's going on. But the men, we just want to go, well, I don't want to feel that anymore. I want to fix it.
Yep.
And so we jump to that. Where we go wrong is in the transition. Instead of acknowledging, I can feel your pain. Yes, I can. I'm feeling that. And that's really horrible, because when you acknowledge it, you're saying to the person, yes, it's okay to feel that way. So now you've got a connection. And then you go, but hey, would you like me to fix this? Or do you just want me to listen? That's what should be asked. One question. Do you want this? Is this something you want me to fix, or is it something you want me to just listen to?
Yeah.
And if they say they want you to fix it, one of two things. Either you have the ability to fix it, something that's come up that they know you have the ability, or you're screwed up in the first place and they want you to fix that. But if they just want you to listen, they just need to vent. And they'll guarantee somebody who's got the more dramatic appreciation, that's more outward going and everything else, they will do stress with the same fervor. And for somebody who's really laid back and keeps it all inside, they can come across as really stressful to that person. Well, if you look at them and go, okay, I know you just need to vent. It's got nothing to do with me. You don't want me to fix it. You just want a pair of ears listening and somebody watching what's going on. Yeah, I can do that because I care. And this is how couples can then come together again.
And it's detaching yourself from the situation. And that's something I learned that I use in my relationship with my husband and with my boys, is I really had to, what you just said, remember that it isn't always at me. Sometimes it's just them getting it out. And you really have to understand that difference, or be aware of it, so that you can say, okay, they're frustrated with something. We just started the conversation, so it's not me. And continue to listen to understand more, versus what I see a lot of people doing. Like you said, they answer really quick. And I think a lot of times that people answer really quickly because it's also a trigger for them, whether it's something they've been through that they haven't dealt with, something that they're biased to, and they're real quick to give you their answer. Whereas I've taken the opposite approach and been very conscious and aware of that. So if somebody is talking to me and I feel that I need to give an answer in the middle of them speaking, I know that it's coming from something I still need to let go. And so I keep my mouth shut. And we don't give each other that space at all for that. That was something I really had to learn with my boys, especially my oldest one, due to the things that they had seen and things he had been through. He was going through a lot at his age, on top of hormones and becoming 18 and all the things, right? So we had to establish a line of communication that comes very different than what a lot of people parent, which is, I see you, I hear you, do you want to continue speaking, versus I see you, I hear you, but I'm still in charge. And when I learned to let go of that, the conversation doors opened up dramatically, and we were able to give each other that space. So if he's getting really angry and he's in the moment, he has the space to say, I'm getting really ticked. I don't want to keep having this conversation. We can continue in a minute. And I give him that grace. And because of that, our relationship has grown tremendously to be able to understand each other. And now he gets to use that in his life at 19 and be able to communicate on a totally different scale than most people.
That's it. Because in the original state that you had there, it would have been a case of you had to be right. Whereas once you understand that, okay, if I have to be right and the other person's upset and everything goes, they're not going to change. This is going to go downhill real fast. But people will continue doing it because they have to be right.
Yeah.
I don't have to be right. I need to understand. That's my bottom line. Once I understand more about that person, then I can deal with the differences. This is where I think we go wrong in a lot of ways. It's like in the Campfire Project, I've interviewed, my oldest interview was with a guy by the name of Ted. I called it my TED Talk. He was 99 years old at the time. The youngest person to run an interview was Oscar. He was 9 years old, and he interviewed his father, who was my co-host in the group. We've had all genders, all cultures, and all religions. Every conversation I've had with all of those people, by the way, over 600 hours of conversation so far, there's been no bigotry, sexism, or racism. Not once has anybody been disrespectful to anybody else. And the reason being is that we always stop and we listen. We want to know more, because I'm always looking for the common thread. And one of the things I realized between all genders, all cultures, all religions worldwide, every last person wants to feel that they contribute, or except for a very small percentage who would fit into the psychopath profile. But everybody wants to feel valued, that they contribute, that they have a place, that they belong. If you have all of that, so we know that once I've got that connection with somebody, I realize that, yes, they're not one of that very small percentage, but these are people who all have the same common thread. Now I have a common thread with them, and then I can deal with the differences that we have much more effective, because now I'm looking at understanding the differences, not trying to be right over the top of the differences. And in that way, it's always so easy to build connections with people.
Yeah.
The last thing I need to be is right, because I know that if I always got to be right, then I'm not learning anything. And I've now robbed myself of so many experiences, and I've actually put myself in a jail that I'm locked into. The best thing that I realized is that every time I learn something new, there's so much more that I don't know. And that process will go on until the end of my days. I think it was John Wooden from the UCLA. He'd said that the most important thing you'll ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know everything. And so I'm always in that phrase. I always listen to everybody. But I love another old saying, which was an Arabic saying, which said, trust everybody, but lock up your camels at night. And so with that one, what I look at is that listen to everybody, take all the information in, but then really look at it and discern it and see how well it fits me. Does this fit with the way that I see things? Look for the real truth inside of that. That way I'm always learning. As I say to people, people say to me, oh, are you a full-time teacher? I go, no, I'm a part-time teacher, but a full-time learner. I don't teach people, I learn them. And that'll probably set the grammar police off straight away. What do you mean talking about learning people? Well, if I want to teach somebody, as I said, I profile them, I understand them, so I'm learning about them. Then I know how to deliver what I want to deliver to them more effectively. So I have to learn before I can teach them.
And you have to want to be curious versus judging, and understanding that even if you understand their perspective and it's not the same as yours, that's okay. Right. That I think is where we get really confused as well, is we are so stuck in what we have been raised in, what our limiting beliefs are, what people have taught us, that we haven't taken the chance to think about, is it an actual truth? And then as soon as someone tells us something different, we become very defensive.
That's it. So we're coming at each other like this with our own viewpoints. And it's like, if you put the number 6 on the ground and you said to each of them, one of them, look at that one will see 6 and the other one will see 9, and they'll argue about it. They're both right. But the thing is to understand their viewpoint, moving around to their side. That's why I always said, if you're listening to an argument and you feel that you're part of the argument, step out of the argument and look at it from an outside view and go, okay, how would other people see and respond to what's going on between me and this person? So you move to that third person position. The more you're able to do that, you're letting go of the emotions that locking you in. So I meet someone like this, and we walk in this way, and then we start to change the direction. As we go, we then start in a conversation, go off in the same direction, because yes, we may just agree to differ, or in that conversation, oh, I never thought of that side. And they look at it and go, I never thought of that side either. So you come to that meeting point. So you're both learning, and also you're changing your view without having to be right. Because as I always say to people, have you done the best that you possibly could up to this point in your life? And they go, yes. I say, you've used all the information that you have. You've done the best with the best, all the information you've had. And they go, yes. Nobody can do more than that. But the more information that we can add to that, then our decisions can change. We're not locked in. That's a great thing about it. Give me more information so I can then learn from that, and I can change that direction. So if I know that somebody's yelling and angry and everything else, if I can then uncover why they're angry, doesn't mean I condone their behavior, but I understand why they got there. So straight away, I'm not emotional about it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I don't get drawn in, caught up in it. Because as we see on Facebook, people are taking sides and they're fighting with each other. The person who started the fight walks away and the thing's still going.
Yeah.
This is how somebody who bully at work, for instance, a mobber. They get the mob involved. They make a comment, get people lock onto that. Those people keep talking about it. They walk away, sit in the corner, having their little chuckles to themselves. They watch everybody else fighting, or see a whole group of people push somebody else down into the ground emotionally, and bullying them right to the. And this person wasn't me, but that's how they use that side of everybody to trap other people into being manipulated by them to do their bidding.
Yep.
Once you start using that reasoning, you cannot be controlled by anybody. At the moment, the majority of the population is so easily controlled. The media, the stuff they put out, next thing you know, the world's falling to pieces. And it's only because we listen to the media. Had I knowing their agenda, we would never listen to it. So listening to understand more as opposed to listening to respond changes and gives us more power. It gives us better relationships, and it disempowers those that would use us.
Yeah. And it allows you to let go of things a lot easier. I know that this is something that I had to do when I got out of my abusive relationship. For a really long time, I still felt like he had control. And every time that I got emotional or I dealt with something, it reverted back to it being his fault. The more that I started learning his behavior and understanding, and then started talking with other people and realizing that there's a lot more to it that I paid attention to. It doesn't mean that what he did to me was right, but what it did mean was I was able to let go of the in-between and be able to now move forward and heal myself and accept that he just is the way that he is and understand the difference, right? Which also made it better for parenting. My youngest one was involved with him up until recently, and it was always a goal of mine to stay very neutral in the conversations. And when you're dealing with someone that has very narcissistic tendencies, that's always pushing their agenda and their way of something, especially on a child, it makes it very difficult to play that in-between role. And so that was something I really worked on, because I refused to be the person that made my child completely uncomfortable, regardless of what household they go to, because they're always being fed somebody else's sides.
That's it. So one of the things that I mentioned to you before, my first wife, she left, I had 3 boys to raise on my own. They were 4, 11 and 12. Now, one of the things that after I got married the second time, that was a short marriage, but my youngest boy moved back with his mother, and he was about 16 at the time, and he was fighting with her all the time. I'd take him out bush, we'd go camping, and he'd come back and be respectful for about a week or so, and then next thing you know, they're fighting again. And I thought, and she said to me, he doesn't love or respect me. I went, yes, he does, and so do his brothers. They love you. That's why they're still around you. But yeah, you're right, they don't respect you. But if you realize, give me the opportunity and know I'm doing this for them and not for you, I will make sure that they respect you. Once you got that respect, your job is then to keep it from that point on. And so we did that. And with that, and people said, why did you do that? Well, I realized I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it for the boys, because I always look for what reason can make this easier for me to do it. If there's something I don't want to do, what is something around that makes it easier for me to go and do that? And so that took a little bit of work, but I thought, okay, what did she bring in? What did we have it? Not what she took out of the marriage, like by telling me I'm not good enough to be a husband and a provider anymore, but what did she bring into the marriage? Well, simply 3 sons that I love and respect. I never would have had without our union. So therefore, I could love her for that without needing to be in love with her. And therefore, I could change the way which I behaved around her. And we started co-parenting the boys at that point. The older boys, my oldest one is 8 years older than the younger one. And his mates, they all come around. They were curious. So his mates were getting involved in watching this. So we were impacting on everybody else's family around us. When after my second marriage, only a short marriage, in that particular time, she actually said to me one day, this is my first wife, she said, I need somewhere to stay. I know you've got a spare room. Could I be a lodger? I said, paying your own way, separate lives. I said, okay. Well, that was only supposed to be for 3 months. Well, she moved out 3.5 years later. And everybody said to me, how in the world could you allow that to happen? Why did you do it? I said, simply because I looked at it, what she brought into the marriage and everything else, because of love of the boys and everything else. But at the same time, knowing that they were watching this as well. So they learnt so much from this. So it wasn't just, and with that, I no longer had any emotions with it at all. Because I looked at what was more important, and I made a decision. Because that's the whole thing. Every last one of us, nobody does anything to us. They might throw a rock or whatever it might be. Yes, we get that. But how we respond to that is our choice.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody can come up to you, be yelling and carrying on, and you can then match that and just keep the fight going, what I will do is I'll match their anger momentarily and then shift it and start taking, it's like a dance. You do the push to get the movement going, and then you steer it from there. Because I've got to acknowledge the other person's angry. Once I've got that acknowledgement, then I can go, okay, I've said to you, yes, it's okay to be angry, because I've now got angry as well. So you can see that, yeah, we're both angry, but now how about we change that? What can we do to fix the problem? So you always acknowledge the other person first before you try and change them. Like, I don't know whether it's like in real life in America with the police, but we see it on all the TV shows. When somebody's getting upset, here's a policeman going, now I need you to calm down. Yeah, you're inviting a punch in the face when you're doing that. If they responded back and said, hey, don't get angry with me like that, and then changed it, there'd be no conflicts. But there'd probably be no show either.
During the drama TV shows, they would lose out. Oh gosh, Alan, I think I could talk to you for hours, because this is such an important topic of people coming at things from a completely different perspective than what we are taught, and getting rid of all the bias and coming from a place of curiosity and wanting to learn and wanting to understand and letting go of the egos. It's so important, and it's something that I talk about a lot with people that I work with and other podcasts that I've been on and things too. So I can't thank you enough for being a part of the podcast and sharing all this information. Now you've given us so much amazing pieces of advice. One thing that I always ask is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, one of the sayings that I really love is that what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the community is and always will be eternal. And that's the thing. You've got a stronger connection with people when you do things. And I hate the term servant leader. I'm not a servant leader, because you can't be a servant and a leader at the same time. I am a serving leader. I serve other people, but I can lead them in doing that service. So it's looking, this is the main thing, look at the words that we use. If you ever hear somebody say to you, fake it till you make it, and they're a motivational speaker, get up, walk out of the room straight away, because you're wasting your time. The old saying was, act as if. Now, if you look at some of the character actors, those that have played psychopaths, Silence of the Lambs, for instance, you looked at him, my God, he's a psychopath. He went and practiced it, and he acted as if he was there. So you're immediately there. If you want to succeed, act as if. If you want to fail, fake it till you make it. Completely the opposite thing, but some clown thought it was a clever way of rephrasing act as if. So think about the words that you're using and the words that other people are using, and don't buy into it.
I love that. I've really gotten away from that fake it till you make it. So I love that you brought that to the forefront as well. So Alan, do me a favor and share with everybody, how can people connect with you? How can they be a part of your world, especially Campfire? Share all the things.
Okay, well, the easiest way to find me is through my personal website, business website, which is just my name, Alan Stevens, AlanStevens.com.au for Australia. And the Campfire Project is pretty much the same thing. It's thecampfireproject.com.au. That's the website. You'll find out more about a couple of little videos in there that then will take you to the Facebook page. And I'm presently looking for a new home away from Facebook, to somewhere where more people get told about what's going on and with better ethics. So, talk to me about that one, because I'm working with another platform at the moment, and I'm looking for coaches to work with me.
Nice. Well, Alan, I can't thank you enough again for being a part of this. And I love the project that you have going on with Campfire as well. We'll be sure to have all that information in the notes so that everybody can connect with you. So thank you again for being a part of the podcast. And to everybody else that's out there, I really hope that you guys are taking this to heart and you took some notes. This is something that you all hear me talk about a lot, is communication and understanding and coming at things with a place of curiosity and letting go of that ego. So listen to this one again. I really think that this is a very important topic for people to touch base on. And until next time, don't forget, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time. Have a fantastic day.
Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.